Hello and welcome back for our next episode of Still We Persist. And if this is your first time, welcome. I'm Maija, one of the co-hosts of Still We Persist, and I am joined by my other co-host, Shaina, as well as the rest of the Aya team, Jada and Benajza. And in today's episode, with the upcoming Valentine's Day, we're just going to be talking about all things Valentine's, love, dating as a woman of color, and the joys and challenges that come with that. And so before we get started, we'll have our lovely Shaina read our land acknowledgement.
Thanks, Maija. Oregon State University in Corvallis is located within the traditional homelands of the Marys River or Ampinefu Band of Kalapuya. Following the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855, Kalapuya people were forcibly removed to reservations in Western Oregon. Today, living descendants of these people are part of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Celeste Indians. Indigenous people are valued, contributing members of the Oregon State community and represent multiple sovereign tribes among students, faculty, staff, and alumni. Aya accepts its responsibility for understanding the continuing impact of that history on these communities. We are committed in the spirit of self-reflection, learning, reconciliation, and partnership to ensure that Oregon State, as an institution of higher learning, will be of enduring benefit not only to the state of Oregon, but also to the people on whose ancestral lands it is now located. So we'll start off our episode with each sort of introducing ourselves. If you watched our first episode of this year, you heard a little bit about us, but so let's start with how do we each identify? What's the important parts of ourselves and our identities? And I can start since I'm asking the question and I'm unmuted already. So like Maija said, I'm Shaina Khan. I use she, her pronouns. I have always been South Asian. That's like maybe the part of my identity that comes to mind first. My parents are from Bangladesh. I was born in the US and grew up mostly in Kentucky. So I'm very much a Southern person. I'm also bi, as Maija and I talked about extensively last week. And gender stuff is a little bit weird. I kind of identify as a woman, kind of don't have an gender identity, but I basically date as a bi woman of color. Who would like to go next?
I'll take it. So as I said, I'm Maija fam, just Maija is fine. I use she, her pronouns. If you read my piece in WoC Wednesday, I identify as biracial, half Black, half Vietnamese American, and I've been raised with those values and identities in my culture. And I identify as bisexual, biromantic, love everyone, love the love. And yeah, and so lots of things, and as a woman, of a cisgender woman, so she, her. And I'm gonna toss it to save some time, Jada.
Hi everyone. I was also on the first episode, but I haven't been on the most recent one. So I'm Jada. I am 100% Chinese. I took an ancestry test recently as one of my Christmas presents a year ago or so. I was actually adopted from China. So I came from China, but have grown up in the US ever since I was about 1 year old. So I am pretty much 100% Chinese. And I do identify as a woman, she, her pronouns, cisgender, and I am straight heterosexual. So B, or Benajza, sorry.
Hi, I'm Benajza. I haven't been on most of the videos either because there's too many things going on, but I am an African-American Black student at OSU. I identify as a cisgender woman, so I'm she, her, and then I am also heterosexual, straight. Oh, happy Black History Month.
Yeah, keep an eye out for our Black History Month interview with Benajza. We're planning on doing that episode. Very excited to have that conversation. So one question I have for you all is, how do potential dates see you, or, if you're currently partnered, how have they seen you in the past? And what would you like for dates to see about you? And since I answered the last one first, are you willing to take this question first?
I can definitely answer first. I am single. How potential dates see me, I don't even know how they see me. A lot of people call me sweet, which like that's fine. Or like I'm sweet all the time. I don't know where they get that from. But I am sensitive, and I would love for people to realize that. I think people forget that Black women are sensitive sometimes, so they like want the strong Black woman, and I'm not always that. So yeah, I'll pass it to whoever wants to go next.
I can take this because I know all the things that first jumped into my head as soon as Shaina asked this question. So, as a college student, I did the Tinder thing, the Bumble, the Hinge, everything we get ads about. And one of the most like predominant topic starters that people would ask me would be like, so like, what are you? How do you identify? Like, what's your ethnicity or your race? Or like, they tell me things like I look so exotic, or they even just start guessing. They'd be like, I might be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, are you this, this, and this? And I'd be like, no, goodbye. And so, yeah, so for me in my dating life, especially in Corvallis, so I want to preface that like most of my dating life has taken place like in college over these last like 3.5 years. Here in Corvallis is very white. Like, I think everybody knows that. And so, yeah, I also want to note that it was not women or anyone who doesn't identify as male. It was predominantly guys who were asking me these questions. And so, yeah, that was always a topic of conversation of like my ethnic ambiguity. And depending on if that came later or not, sometimes I'd be like down to answer. I'm like, oh, I'm actually like half Black, half Vietnamese. But it's pretty like it's on people's mind, even if they aren't interested in me romantically or sexually. People really want to know, and sometimes I don't think it's complicated, but the most out of left field one I've gotten for y'all to know is Puerto Rican Filipina, to which they thought they had to have thought about that. They had to have stared at my like profile, shared it around to their friends, but like, what do you think? Should I just ask? To which their friends should have said no. But yeah, and as far as like currently, I'm currently partnered. I'm booed up. I got somebody for the Valentine's Day. And as both of us are both mixed. And so I think, and for us, we recognize that within each other. Like we talked about it later after having been friends and getting together, that we had this understanding, and more organically it came out what those identities were, but it wasn't a focal point, thankfully, for our relationship.
Yeah, Maija, I can definitely relate to some extent about the first part that you mentioned. Not even just like dating wise, because I feel like I didn't really date that much, but I guess within high school, but just I've gotten a lot of people just wondering about my identity. And I mean, it's hard too, because I come from a primarily like white town. There's a lot of white people. I'm like basically the only woman of color there. So I'm definitely stand out. But I guess in the sense or the lens of what I'm saying is that people, since I am like one of the only like woman of color, then it becomes like all eyes are on me, and people kind of question that. And in the sense of like, oh, what race are you? What ethnicity are you? And I mean, admittedly, I don't even know what, like, I obviously know I'm a Chinese woman, but I guess like from the outside looking in, I don't know what I look like to other people in that sense. So people just come up to me and be like, hey, like, are you Polynesian or something? And it's definitely kind of awkward. I used to work at ClickList at Freddy's, so I would like go around and shop for other people, and customers just come up to me and ask like, oh, what race are you? And I don't even know if it's even like that offensive. I guess it's just kind of weird to like think that other people think that, and it's been mostly like white people who've done it, which I guess kind of I don't know. I don't even know. It's weird. But in terms of dating, I am booed up also. I got a fiance, so that's fun. But I don't he is a white man, so he's not like biracial or a mix of any sort. But I think that he's trying to understand, which is good. My sense of it. But I think just even in my past relationships, people have been like, oh, well, I actually like being with women who have a culture and stuff. And it's just kind of like funny, but weird. Like, I mean, is that the only reason why you're dating me or stuff? But definitely a weird experience. I haven't had a lot of like dating experience like Tinder or anything. I never use those dating apps, but I guess just dating in a small white town is definitely interesting because I don't have much selection and all eyes are on me. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Jada. And I think like some of the things you're saying kind of reminded me too of like some of the interactions I've had, or that like friends and like close people that have shared in some of that, where like for me, people are like, oh, I really like light skinned girls, or oh, I really like my women with some color. I have gotten that. I've gotten that. And it's gross because it's like, can you please exit at the nearest door, please? Because and it's weird too. Like I have to admit, like there were some times where I appreciated comments like that because I didn't know who I was and how I like that same thing of like, how do I look to myself? And like growing up, like also predominantly white towns, cities. I mean, I'm from Oregon. I'm from like the suburbs of Portland. Went to private school, so like lots of PWIs for my whole life. And so I never understood what it meant for me to be a person of color in certain spaces. And so when they say things like this, it's like, oh, that's like really nice. And then I became educated and I was like, no, this is atrocious. And I feel sick to my stomach thinking back on some of these, because it's like there's no need to put down other individuals of color for like their skin tone, the way they present, their ethnicities, like how like their racial mixture. And there's no need to also make it so grossly obvious. Like we all walk into a room, we know I'm a woman of color. Let's like just stop there. And until like I engage with you and let you into my life, like, and tell you my story, let's treat me like a person and just start there. Just start there. So yeah, that's what that brought up for me. It's just like some people, man, they just have the space to say everything.
And I find it so annoying when white people act like they don't have a culture. Like if I'm dating them, I don't have to get used to anything about them, but like they have to figure stuff out about me. Like my family is weird to them, or like we have customs, and I'm like, you all have customs. Like you don't take your shoes off in the house, and that's gross, and that is a custom. So like, you know, in my friend groups, if it's like predominantly white within the group, and there's like, you know, an interracial couple where like one person's white, they'll always act like the white person has it harder because they have to get used to like this foreign culture. And I don't think that's true. I think like anytime two people are coming together, like, you know, you're getting used to each other's families and all the habits that we picked up on as kids that like seem completely normal to us, but are like different from how other people do these things, right? Yeah, it's annoying to me that like white people tend to assume they have it harder in these like interracial relationships. But I'll answer my original question. So I am single. I am always single, which is cool with me. With like dating, you know, I've been on the apps. Haven't done it for a while, and I think I downloaded Tinder maybe when I moved to Corvallis, and I was like, yeah, actually, maybe not. I didn't. I think I had it for like one night. But so I've like when I've been on dating apps, I've noticed it seems like a lot of men think I'm easily manipulated. I don't know if it's just like they see a South Asian person and they just think like, okay, this person is like naive. And I'll get like odd comments where they think that they just have to say a line and then they can take me out to dinner. I don't love that. I want to, like actually have somebody who sees me as a person, which has happened too. And I was thinking about it the other day and I realized like every person that I've ever been on like any number of dates with has been white except for one person, which I don't know how that happened. Maybe it's just because I've been in like predominantly white places, but I think if I do date again, I might change that trend. I might try to change the pattern. So, and has anything come up for anybody since we started answering this question?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, B. Go ahead. You haven't talked in a while.
Okay. For the dating app things, I did have them before I moved here. I knew that this was going to be like a white town, so I just didn't do it. But I did have the dating app things, and they also say weird stuff to Black women too. A lot of times it's like, I've never been with a Black woman, and I'd be like, well, it's not gonna happen. I don't know what to tell you. Or it's like, oh, I've had the exotic thing. I had the exotic thing in person though, and it's because I had my hair in like a hair wrap. And it was just because my hair wasn't done and I looked a mess and I had to go to work. So I put my hair in a hair wrap and I didn't even do it well. The man, he was out of his mind. But like, he was like, you look so exotic. I'll go get you whatever you want. And I'm like, I'm not taking anything from this man other than money. Bye.
What I was gonna say was, Shaina bringing up the point of only dating primarily white people is definitely my experience too. I think it's just what was available, as horrible as it sounds, but I guess there was no diversity in the town I had, so there wasn't really any, I guess, like option for me. But another thing that's kind of weird that I've noticed is just like me being one of the only women of color dating white men. It's definitely interesting because in some of my relationships, I've had certain guys like outrightly be racist towards me, or they would say it to other people indirectly. Like I had like a thing with this one guy, and he literally made jokes about being adopted, which I am also adopted. Like he used it as an insult, like you're adopted to other people. And don't even ask me why I stayed that long, but another thing was just like, stereotypical Asian jokes and stereotypes, and it gets a little like frustrating. I'm sure everyone has gone through it, but I guess like it coming from a place of like a white individual makes it kind of just like is very symbolic, I guess, of the whole process. But yeah, that was my 2 cents. But yeah,
what y'all have been saying brings up like so many things for me, because I was thinking about it where it's like, oh, this whole othering of like people of color and their cultures, or like, wow, like it must be so hard to adjust. Like for some cultures in some places, I'm like, baby, let me spice up your life. Let me show you my food. Let me show you my people. Let me show you how we do things around here. So it's always just a weird thing of like, for anyone, and like, not to say that there's all these cultures are bland, or there's other, some of the people that we've been with, but it's like, wouldn't you want to know more about like just other people and the cool things that there are? Because it's like some people in cases they like eat our culture up. They're like, oh, I want it as my own. And it's like, let me share it with you in a way that like is meaningful, and that like you get to be with people from that place or who have those traditions. And because like even like, so for the Lunar New Year, my partner and I went home to see my family, and we had all of these different foods that are traditional to the Lunar New Year or Thet. And like every time we go back to drive up to go see my family, we go see my grandpa, and we go and I like ask for like, I don't want to say like the most Vietnamese food, but I'm like, make something like super authentic. Like you're getting this food, and I want to expose my partner or even like my friends, like just bringing them around and be like, here's what it is, and I want to share this with you. And it's never been an issue. And so it's like the people who are making an issue or who have this like perception of it are really having like deep feelings about it. Like they're really going in on how it's like, oh, like this is so different from what I'm used to, and I don't want to lean into that. And it's frustrating. And like, especially being in this town where, like, as a Vietnamese person, there's not great Vietnamese food here. Like truly, there's not. There's like, we can only get by. And so when people are like, oh, like you're Vietnamese, like let me take you to the spot I know. And I'm like, I guarantee you I know that spot and it's not great. Like it's fine. Like don't come at me when I have family who own restaurants. I'm like, but like be appreciative about it. I don't know. I'm gonna step off my soapbox because that's just the way people perceive it can set me off.
Just real quick, I think another point is that people kind of take it sensitive when people think that we're too sensitive when those types of things happen. And I think that's because it's not being reciprocated for them. Like they don't have to ever worry about that type of stuff happening. Like one thing was like, I went to someone's house, and the mom was like, oh, well, we can make you pot stickers or something. And it's like, yeah, that's not all that I eat. Just being like a Chinese woman, like I can eat other stuff too. And I don't even think that came from a place of like hatred or anything. I think it was just like lack of knowledge and education and just like lack of knowing what's like appropriate. Like essentially, like it kind of was funny, but I mean, thinking deeper about it, it's like, I mean, I'm not only seen as a pot sticker eating girl, like what, like I'm much more than just that. But that was my little blurb. I'm sorry for ranting.
It's not a rant at all, Jada, and I think this might be a good chance to go into like funny dating stories, maybe. Like I'm not going to say that like your experience was entirely comical, but like as a transition, have you are there any funny experiences that you all would like to share, either on the apps or in person?
If we're doing on the apps, I will do the time that I almost went on a date. It was a white dude. And he was so nice, but he always asked me every day, what you doing? And I have so much going on so many days where it's like, it's either work, school, work, or some variation of both of those. And it's still like that. And he would ask every day. And like, at some point I was like, you know what? Our date is on Saturday. It's Wednesday. I actually don't want to go on this date anymore. So I sent him that. He was very sweet. And he was like, oh yeah. And I think he made us this lie that his grandfather had passed. And he was like, yeah, my grandfather passed. I was going to tell you or something. And he was like, I wasn't just feeling it. But I still have him on Snapchat and I saw his grandfather. His grandfather's still alive. He lied on his grandfather's name to see if I would still go. Yeah, people are sketchy.
I have no words for that. Never on your family member's name. But for me, I don't know if this one is like specifically funny. It was funny to me, but I had a partner, like an ex, and I was the first, woman of color, a lot of those things that they'd been with. And for a long time, like they wanted to get back with me, and I was like, no. And then a lot of the people I saw them with following me, like kind of not reciprocating or kind of rejecting them again, looked a lot like me. And so my whole thing was like, oh, so I just live in your head, right? Like you'll never find someone like me. I know I'm not perfect, but I just thought it was so funny that they were still trying to get that however they could. And so, yeah, people, sometimes I go and I change their lives for better or for worse, but that's one of my funny pieces.
I like that you basically ruin men. There's you're just never going to find somebody as good as you.
No, and something actually that has recently come up, and this is maybe not so much as a woman of color, but for women in general, that I think is important for people to know that they're not alone in. Sorry that this has happened to any y'all, but recently in my life, I've been finding out about like people I've rejected and have like, you know, set boundaries for myself, talking smack on my name. And I'm like, keep my name out of your mouth. But just like for individuals going into relationships and, you know, deciding that like that's not what they want, you know, the short amount of time that you might have interacted with them, that they are so hurt or offended that their feelings aren't reciprocated, or that like I spoke my truth, that they'll slander women or slander people, make up lies. Like recently found out that someone said that I like slept with them when I never did. And it was after I rejected them and was like, I don't see this going any further. Thank you for your time. And so I just wanted to bring awareness to that for like anyone watching who, you know, I feel you and it sucks and it makes me angry, but I don't think it had anything to do with me as like a woman of color, but like I think an experience for women or like non-male identifying people, and even for people who do identify like anywhere, like they've had these, like, you know, you do what's right for you and somehow you still get burned for it.
Thanks for that message, Maija. I really enjoyed it. Think it's something good for all of us to hear. But like I mentioned earlier, I didn't really date a lot. I have had like boyfriends in the past, but I never really dated like people I didn't know beforehand as much. Like, but another thing that's kind of similar to the pot sticker story is I went to my boyfriend at the time's like family dinner or Easter dinner, and they're like really religious. Okay, so that's just one little barrier, I guess. But they were telling me like that they went on a missions trip to Japan, and I think it was just really awkward because one, did they think I was from Japan? Like, why would they have mentioned this to me? And two, like they were kind of like pushing it on me a little bit too, like religion wise. And it's like I'm a little confused, and at this point, like I just met you guys and now you want me to go on a missions trip to freaking Japan, which I don't even know. That's like the only story I can think of right now, but I'll be sure to try and reminisce on reminisce is a good thing. Reflect. Maybe think back to my past relationships, I guess, about funny stories, but I would love to hear everyone else's. Shaina, got any?
Okay, the thing is, I've been trying to think of a G-rated funny story, and I just could not. Like everything I was thinking of was like not something I'd want to share on this podcast. Maybe when we're offline. But so I guess like maybe something kind of relevant to my family's culture. A lot, not a lot, but like some of the people in my family have had arranged marriages, which like for us isn't really, it's not like they meet on the day they're getting married. It's kind of like arranged dating. So like I've definitely had, there's a thing, it's basically like a resume for dating, kind of like you'd put on a profile, but it's actually like a one-page document that gets sent around to like potential families. It's called their biodata, which is like a funny word. So like I've seen plenty of these resumes. I am apparently highly eligible among like in like the Bangladeshi community because I'm not like super skinny, so I guess I'm good for like bearing children. So a lot of like grandmothers and mothers really like me for their sons and grandsons. But I've seen these resumes, or there was one where like the guy wrote, "My mom and I are looking for," and I was like, okay, no, I'm not dating a guy whose like mom is like also in on this decision to that extent. So that one, like, I don't remember anything else about it because I think I read that and I was like, no, passing on this one. I guess I've never actually like talked to somebody from seeing one of those resumes. It's just more like, you know, somebody has like a nephew looking to get married, and then they contact my parents, and we just like we end up not talking most of the time. But that one stands out to me. Like, how obviously can you be a mama's boy? And I guess another thing, like being a bi person, Maija, you mentioned like you're bi romantic, and I'm bisexual, but I'm like more homo romantic. I like tend to be like more romantically interested in people whose gender is similar to mine. Very rarely like I'm interested in romantic relationships with men. So like it would be kind of cool if we had arranged dating where like our parents were open to like queer relationships, but that doesn't really exist. It's like still very straight in South Asian culture, and I think like kind of across most cultures that have arranged dating. So if anybody could get that going, I'd be really happy to have like queer arranged dating. But if I think of another funny story, I'll share it. Anybody else have something?
That should be one of our events for WoC Fest, just like a dating booth or something. That'd be really fun.
We could totally do it. Be like, all right, fill out this form on our Instagram. Speaking of which, shameless plug, please check out our Instagram for the form that I have linked in our bio and on my story, on the story. But besides that, yeah, fill out the form. We'll do our best. We have no real like qualifications for doing this, but we want to help. But what that made me think of, part of like Jada with what you've shared, and Shaina what you've just shared about like the arranged marriages and arranged dating, is like what have been your family's expectations of like who you'd end up with, like gender aside, because we all have kind of like that different, or if our family might be like more traditional or like old school, still learning some things, but that's something for me that I feel like has come up in my family. And like I won't like keep the stage, I'll come back and talk about it later, but yeah, like who have your parents thought you might like end up with, or maybe even like pushed you towards, or like, oh, like find a nice like Black man or something. Like what do y'all think?
My family, thank goodness they have no say in it. I'm definitely sure they think I'm coming back home with like a white man, and I've already made the decision to not date any white men. It's just how it's happened right now. But I'm going into engineering. I don't want to do that, and because I'm just going to be around a lot of white men in general, and I feel like coming back anywhere, I'm just going to be tired. So, but they always think I'm going to be dating like a really nerdy dude because I like math and stuff. So they always like, that's what it is. My brothers have this. The only thing my brothers want is like a dude who isn't afraid. I don't know what that means when I actually do bring somebody home, because I've never done it. I won't like it's going to take a minute for somebody to actually get to home base like with me, but yeah, I don't know what they're going to do, and I'm not going to help. I'm just going to let my brothers do what they want, and hopefully he lasts. Like, I don't know, but if my parents were to pick, if we had a lineup of people and my parents were to pick like somebody for me, it would be a horrible match, because it would just be whoever my dad thinks is good and my mom just thinks is nice.
Like, B, you're the youngest of, is it 11 siblings? Okay, so you have a lot of older siblings who could like be screening people for you.
I don't want any of them to do it. Not an older sister or a brother. I don't need none of them. Even collectively, all 10 of them would still mess up.
So my experience is kind of funny, I guess. My parents are like, my dad is white and my mom is Asian. My adoptive parents, that is. So they're like already a mixed couple. And then both of my siblings are actually dating white people also, and I am. So I guess we just we just like the white people, I guess. But my parents actually weren't really too strict about who I dated, I guess. I think they trusted my discretion on people. And they were more for like the personality and the qualities of the person than they were like looks wise, which is I think a good thing. Like one aspect was that them having like a clear direction on where they want to go in life and having like goals and stuff was important. Also just like being ultimately like respectful and like at least just acknowledging that I am a woman or woman of color. And I think that's something that I've tried to implement in my life a little bit more, just like, I guess, allowing myself to think I am a woman of color. And like, I don't know if I'm really making sense. I'm not really making sense in my head, but I guess just acknowledging my ethnicity and my race and my culture is important for me. And I think that's something that came from my mom a lot, because my mom dated a white man too, so she married him. But yeah, that it was more like the qualities and the aspects. But ultimately, they weren't too like you have to date this type of person. So I'm happy about that. Asian moms kind of have a stereotype of just being like really harsh and stuff, which my mom definitely was certain times. Like you could definitely tell when she didn't like someone that I liked. So there was that. But I guess ultimately when it came down to it, she trusted, like both my parents trusted all of us, and we're all in pretty good relationships now. So maybe that's effective.
I feel like you have an answer to this question since you asked it. So do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, no. So first of all, thank y'all for sharing those experiences, because yeah, no, it's good to know like at the end of the day, it's like what you want and knowing yourself. And that's a lot of where I come from, where it's like I brought home so many different kinds of people to my parents since like high school, all the people I was dating. And so I don't think they necessarily are. My mom and I kind of had a conversation about this. She was like, her expectations is she thinks that I'm going to end up with someone who is as driven, ambitious, and just like so out there that as I am. But other than that, they don't have a lot of views they prescribe for me. They're just like, we want you to be happy, we want you to make money, and we want you to take care of us when we're old. And I'm like, well, sounds about right. The funny thing that comes up from my family though is there's this distinction I noticed like last Thanksgiving or like the Thanksgiving before. So my grandparents, they are of a line of like 7 or 8 siblings. They came over like either as refugees or just like immigrated over following like the Vietnam War. And they kind of ended up scattered around the West Coast. So a chunk of my family is in California, and then the chunk of us are in like PNW, Oregon, Washington. And we had this family event where California cousins and California family came up. And I pull my cousin aside and I go, hey, have you ever noticed how our California cousins are in like mono-ethnic relationships? So they're all with Vietnamese people. And for like context for me, I was raised by my Vietnamese mom and my Vietnamese stepdad. So then my brother and I are like the only Black ones like here. And so I was like, yeah, have you ever noticed that they're like all dating Vietnamese people? They all marry Vietnamese people. The kids are Vietnamese. But if you look at the PNW family, so my mom has half Black kids. My uncle is married to a white woman. My cousin is married to like a Latina mix girl. And my cousin's sister, my other cousin, is married to a white man. So all of us, once we're like past California, are in interracial like marriages or have like interracial situations in our family. And that was the first time they had all noticed that too. And I think another cousin also is like dating a white guy. And so that was the first time they'd ever noticed it. And I like just picked up on it because I was like, we're all and like even for me, like I'm in another very interracial relationship. And so that was like the thing that I was thinking of when I brought up that question, was just that like, even within my family, depending on the region we're kind of in, was just like a very stark contrast in like how our relationships are. So I bring that up every now and again when they're around. I'm like, hey, look, it's the PNW fam. And by fam, I mean like PHAM, like my last name. It works. But yeah.
Okay, I guess it's my turn and we're getting close to the end of our recording time. So I'll try to be quick and leave some room for final conversations. My family is like, I think they're pretty open. It is very common among Muslim Bangladeshis to expect their children to marry other Muslims. They generally don't care as much about ethnicity, except there is a lot of anti-Blackness in like among South Asians, which is probably a conversation I should have on here at some point. My family cares a lot less about religion, and is not like, I don't think my parents expect me to like end up with another person like who is also Bangladeshi, but I think they like the ease of like having the same language and like similar food and other things. So like I think the ideal for my parents would still be a Bangladeshi person, but they're not going to say no to anybody that I like. The thing that like maybe I've internalized more than anything else is my family's like super about education. I'm sure that's the case for a lot of us. And I think they would expect me to be with somebody who is like, is at least college educated. And I don't mean to say that like my family discriminates based on like formal education, but I think it's an expectation that, is it's just something that like is in my head that I think my parents would probably prefer, but I don't want to speak for them. So I will leave that there. Any final thoughts to end our dating as women of color conversation?
I feel like B is holding out on us. That's all I'm going to say. I've been sitting here this whole time. I feel like when B and I are up in the center together, I'd be hearing things. She'd be telling me. And I feel like everyone who's watching So We Persist is missing out on like getting to have B and Jada here today. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to just call you out, B. Take it or leave it.
Listen, we all know that dating as a woman of color is rough. Dating as a Black woman is rough. It's hard. At this point, my dating life is non-existent because I just don't feel like trying. I'm not even about to try with these men. I downloaded an app and I deleted it 2 days afterwards. I just don't feel like going through it with people. It's so much work. They're so difficult. And then men want the perfect woman and be dumpster garbage trash, and I'm like, I'm not here for this. But I'm apparently supposed to be on another So We Persist, so you can ask me more questions, then I'll do it. I thought of more stuff.
Oh man, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, come in the center for the real B experience.
We can call that the B for real hours.
Okay, I think we should probably wrap up because I feel like we could just start a whole other thing and have fun for like another hour. So thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation. And B and Jada, I loved having you all on here. I definitely want to do this again as soon as we can about any topic. And many thanks to KBVR for actually producing our episodes for us, and to the rest of the Hattie Redmond Women and Gender Center for their support all the time. And check out our socials. They're in the episode description here on YouTube. And we will see you again next week.